And we should be live. There we are. Hey, Anthony.
Hey, Mike.
Good. So I called this the reunion tour because, as you pointed out, I think the last time I actually did a live stream or any stream was 3 years ago.
Yeah. We're both 3 years older now. Oof.
Yeah. Well, 1.5 at least. But it's been crazy. I never expected the pandemic. I started doing this in the pandemic. Actually, I think it was 2020. I had free time on my hands for some unknown reason. And kind of got overwhelmed, and as you know, this is a labor of love doing these live streams and any stream actually. So
yeah. Well, I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, glad to see you here. Actually, one of our first not in person. I think we've been two, I want to say 3. I know we did King Con. I was down there to see you in
3 I
yep
think.
Baltimore,
and then recently, what was the other one? It was in.
Yeah, what was the third one?
You were up for some convention. I didn't go to it, and you were passing along the way, and then we got
Big Apple. That's right.
Yes,
you came to my room. Yeah, that's right. It was the Big Apple show,
and we got together. I remember. Yeah, you got the hotel in Princeton, right down from where we ate the time after Baltimore, from Salt Creek, and that was cool. We got to check out some of your books. Yeah. And we went for breakfast the next day, and no, it was not the next day. It was the fall. It was on Sunday. Yeah. So yeah, I saw you 3 times in a single year. Before that, I don't think I saw you in years. And
I'll be back down again for what is it called, the New Jersey Super Comic Fan Expo Palooza, whatever that big long name is. Middle of April.
We'll be together again. So we're looking forward to. James will be with us again too.
Yeah. So speaking of James, he's watching the live stream. I would be shocked. Well, let's say I'll be pleasantly surprised if anybody joins the live stream, just because I haven't used my channel now in who knows many, many years. I think 3 years, you said. But if anybody pops in, it's going to be either Patrick, if he's still awake, Luther Manning, or I wouldn't be surprised if Alan jumps in, or maybe Bub's Comics. Those guys were always watching my channel back in the day. So,
it's fine. It's cool to get together and talk and do the unboxing that you have and talk about a couple of books. It's no big deal.
Yeah. So I know James is watching. I might pull it up on my phone here in a minute just to monitor the comment section, just in case anybody has a pressing question. But like I said, we'll probably go to the top of the hour, if not a little over. Do about a 50-minute or so video here. But I wanted to show you some of the new stuff that I got. I was going to print out a picture of Patrick and kind of have his head photographed right here if anybody wants to know what happened to Luther. He's busy like we all are, so I get a lot of these boxes of submissions to CGC, and not always have the time to meet up with him to do the unboxing. So as you and I were talking the last couple of days, you had some interest, and I thought, what the heck, might as well take a look. Disclaimer, I've already opened the boxes just because I wasn't planning to do this, but if no one else joins this or watches this recorded stream later on, at least we can talk and chat about some of the books that I got in here.
Yeah, on the back of my chair it actually says Luther Manning, but it's crossed out, and then underneath that it says Reaper. So.
And is that what that chair you're sitting right now inside in that chair?
Yeah.
So I've got maybe 20-ish books here next to me. I figure we'll get started in just a minute. I wanted to do a little bit different here, kind of talk a little bit more about the books, and there's some stories behind each one, and people ask questions. And one of the many videos that I've had queued up that I probably will never get to is doing sort of a deep dive on restoration removal. People ask me that, so what did you do and how did you remove it? And there's all kinds of caveats there. So I'll talk, maybe a few seconds for each book about some of those thoughts, nothing too deep. But before I jump into that part, into the main topic here, you've been on a tear with some of your pre-code acquisitions. I see you got that Astonishing, the guy that melts. You have your props ready.
I got my props ready. Yeah. I was only able to secure a 3.0.
Yeah, there you go. Let me
Now,
put you on full screen here, so you see that in all its glory. Wow.
yeah, it's a pretty difficult book to find. It's very pricey in this grade and above, but I'm very happy. It's a nice looking 3.0, and as anybody that watches my channel, you know, everything is upgradable.
Yeah.
Everything. Sometimes it's just a matter of time. Even the things that I don't think I would upgrade, like if I have a 7.5 this or an 8.0 that, no, everything is on the table. So that's just the way I look. That just is the way I look at things. But for now, it's a very nice book, and I'm very happy to have it in my collection. It was one of my books I wanted to get for 2025.
Yeah. So I recall when you sent me a picture when you got that Mystic number 20,
yeah. 28.
28, the morgue cover, which you probably have right there at the ready.
I do. Yeah, I was able to secure a 5.0. And I know we've talked about this before, Mike, where I said, hey, if you ever get a Mystic, let me know. I've had 4 copies of this book since 2021. Mystic was my very first pre-code Atlas book. And I got rid of that one a year later. I got another one. Then I got rid of that one 6 months later. I got the 4.0. And a year and a half later, I got the 5.0. Hard to get.
I recall. So a little bit of my backstory. So I first discovered Atlas books. I want to say I knew of them before I bought the Gerber photojournals around 1997. But that was sort of like the gateway drug for my Atlas addiction, where I went through and just made a massive list. No, actually, I take it back. I got the Gerber photojournals when Ernie was still alive. I think he passed away in like 98 or so. I want to guess I got it 1995 when he was still printing those, the new editions, first editions. And so I've always been an Atlas fan. I mean, almost from day one. I was buying EC books, back in elementary school. I was just, I think I posted on one of the IG comments. I put something up. I forgot who, or if it was myself, but I used to have on my locker door some of the EC comic panels. Now, they didn't come out of the EC books. They came out of like, Playboy and Hustler magazines. But there was a comic section where they had more adult comics. And but yeah, I got hooked on ECs. I found out Atlas books existed, and that was one of the first Atlas books that I got. Not the one, but one of the early ones. So when you posted it on, I think it was Instagram, I was surprised that you were going down that pit. It's addictive. And you said you've had 5 copies of that book?
It's my 4th copy.
Fourth.
Oof. I first found out, like you were saying, you first found out about Atlas back in 95 through Gerber. I first found out about Atlas through Tony Toth, whom we both know.
Yeah, we've met.
Pre-Code Monster on Instagram, and he used to do YouTube. Yep. He doesn't do YouTube anymore. But anyway, for me, it was always EC. Now, I was familiar that there was the Black Cat Mystery and the Charlton comics and all that stuff. But it was through Tony that I found out about Atlas. And probably somewhere when I started looking up other people on Instagram, I started seeing some of these Atlas books, including the Mystic and the Men's Adventures, which you sold me a couple of years ago.
Right.
And I first jumped in with Mystic 28, and I said, I'll just get one Atlas because I can't really go down this path. Well, you know how that story goes. It's see another one. And one last little story with this one right here before you want to start showing some books. Let me see. Right. Instagram has been a really great place to find out about books that you never knew existed. It could also be a curse too. And I first found out about this one.
Yes, Harry Anderson.
And he's a really popular on Instagram. I think his name is DJ or whatever. He posted that book, and I was like, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah.
And when I started looking for that, it was just one after the other after that. So Mystic brought me to the dance, and Mystic Tales pretty much said, "You're not leaving."
Yeah.
That was it. And I've had I've had 3 copies of Mystic Tales. Two within 6. I think all 3 were within 6 months. I upgraded I went from a 3 to a 3.5 to a 5. And
Wow.
yeah.
Hey, I see we've got somebody joined us here. I'm gonna pull up my live stream just to see if it's not James or if it's somebody else. So bear with me just a second. I was let's see, what is my live stream called? Okay, there it is. I was remiss in getting this set up before, but I wasn't thinking about it, so I got to change my account. It's been a while. I mean, I have like 3 YouTube accounts. So, yeah, that Harry Anderson book, that is very difficult to find in any condition. You know, it's
Yeah.
funny how some of these are extremely rare. I just picked up that Menace #1, which has eluded me for decades. Another book that's very tough to find.
Yeah.
So,
I need to upgrade my Menace 5.
oh, really? Yeah.
The 3, but you told me that's notoriously difficult to find with the reds still intact, because for some reason or another, the red in Zombie on the front cover and the red ink that's used on the back advertisement seem to bleach out pretty quickly.
Yeah, that does fade. Absolutely.
But yeah, it's another one. It's a nice looking 3.0, but it's a little bleached in the red. But that's another book that I would like to upgrade. I don't know when, but
okay, let me see. I think this is coming up here. Okay, there we go. Make sure the sound is down. Yeah, turn off the sound here. I'll mute this. Okay. I can watch. Oh, nothing in the live chat. So I have 2 people are watching. It could be the 2 of us. It's been a while. I'll keep this kind of off to the side here so I can kind of watch that. So, yeah, it's a slippery slope when you start going on the Atlas route, because I've been a big Atlas fan for what now probably 40 years and have quite an extensive collection. And I don't think I've got any here, but let's kind of jump into some of these books. So, like I said, I've already looked at the grades, and
set up
what I've done here is,
wow.
let me kind of go full screen here so you can kind of see a little better. There we go.
Nice.
So this, there we go. Try to get least amount of glare. So this is Green Lantern number 15, and it was a restored book. Now, what's special about this copy? This came from the Christine Farrell collection. So Christine passed away roughly, was it last summer? She was the mega collector. I want to say she lived near Boston, I think Massachusetts area, and she had a complete DC collection.
Oh, wow.
So Heritage auctioned a bunch of these off, and I talked to one of the guys at Heritage, Rob Reynolds specifically, and he told me a little bit more about the backstory of this collection. But this one was restored. It was a 7.5, and the restoration was extremely minor. There was a little bit of very mild color touch-up on the lower right corner, and it was done in colored pencil, so it could just rub right off. So this was a restored 7.5, and after I removed that restoration, oops, it's a little preview there. It came back as a 7.5, so same grade. So I will probably keep these labels with this collection. So, you know, when the day comes that I do sell, and by the way, I think all of these books are for sale. I don't plan to keep any of these long term, but I will be selling them. So if anybody's interested, you know, I'll repeat this a few times. I'm on Instagram as sellingcomics.com, which is selling DOTCOM. You can also go to my website, sellingcomics.com. And of course, you can comment here if you would like. So I'll get the contact information. But yeah, so there was that one. And then I think I told you about this book right here. So you're familiar with this book.
I am. First Killer Moth.
Yep. So this one's Batman number 63, and it was a restored 5.5. And again, this was from Christine Farrell's collection. A lot of her books had some restoration, A lot of golden age stuff, obviously has restoration, much more than silver age, but it was a couple of tear seals. Unfortunately, the tear seals were along the spine. And I think, yeah, from the staple, roughly from here. So this much of it was split and then glued. So once I removed that, it came back, lower grade, but it's now a blue 4.0.
That's still pretty good.
One of the comments I'll make about this is whenever you have a restored book, it's kind of like doing car repairs. You have to kind of assess, the impact of the work. Do you want to repair or do you just total the car, write it off? Some books I get, it's like, it's just not worth the effort, especially on the spine. If there's like something that's holding the book, integrity wise together on the staples, you don't want to take that off and like have the cover fall off. Or, some of these books, the restoration, I'll show you one coming up. There's so much color touch on the spine, it would require completely splitting the spine. In that case, why would do that to the book, especially for a nice, good eye appeal. So the next one I've got here. So this is one I got a while back. So this is Pep Comics number 29. It's got a really cool war cover. Which way do I have? There we go. It's got a pretty cool war cover here with a lot of Japanese soldiers on it. You got the black hood, you got the shield, and then there's this Nazi guy. I'm not quite sure. I forget his name. But there was an Archie nemesis there. Not Archie, the character, but Archie Comics nemesis, the guy with the swastika on his chest. But 5.0. Now, this book, looking at the back, you could probably see that there was this very large tear that goes right around this area. And it was glued. You can get a little closer right there. You can focus. Well, it's not going to focus that well. But there's a large tear. And you can see a little bit of discoloration in the paper right there. So the glue ran along that length of the tear. So yeah, basically this one just required removing that glue. So it was a 5, and now it's a 4.0 blue label. Yeah, tear seals are some of the nicest, or I guess easiest restoration to work with, just because you can see what the extent of the damage is. And once you remove that, the tear is still going to be there. Where, things like color touch-up pieces added, sometimes the book will tend to, fall apart once you start removing some of that stuff. And then this is a book. I got a question for you. Have you ever seen this book before? No. Comic Cavalcade number 2.
Not to my knowledge, no.
So this book, this one was kind of a classic, sort of a, yeah, I guess I'll call it a classic cover. Overstreet would have this book quite often. In certain issues, you'd see this cover quite a lot. It was considered pretty popular, this number 2 at least. And this was a Christine Farrell book again. I mean, I bought a number of books of hers that had restoration on it. This was an 8.0, and now it's a blue label 7. Oh. Now, the thing with this book is the restoration work was all along the top edge, and then along the right, and also along the bottom. Somebody had taken, and if you can see, if I can get in here close enough, it's probably not, yeah. If you look, you can see a little bit of color flaking, like right along the top edge. It's just very slight. Somebody had filled all of that in where that white is. They filled it all in. So basically, I had to rub all of that off. It probably took about 2 hours. And the nice thing would
do that.
Yeah, the nice thing about this was it wasn't ink based, so it came off pretty clean. There was no need to remove paper. So when I looked at the book, I mean, an 8.0 is nice, restored, and I decided, you know what, it's not going to require me to take the paper and cut it, or remove the pieces that were color touched. Just rub that off, and what's left is a little bit of a braided paper. So it came out pretty nice, considering that from an 8.0 to a 7.
That's really nice.
Yeah. So this is, I've got 2 more books from Christine Farrell's collection. This Adventure Comics number 65.
Oh.
So at first glance, you think, oh, it's a Nazi cover. Nah, it's got a bunch of skull, crossbones on the wings, but it's got that Nazi kind of appearance. It is a World War II 1941 book, and very high grade 8.0. Now, when I got this, the restoration notes said there was some color touch, and I thought, okay, you can't really tell, but I saw a little bit of suspicious color on the top corner. When I got it, what I found out is somebody replaced the top and bottom corners of the spine with little small pieces of paper, and then, touched it up around those pieces. So I thought about it, and I decided that rather than, take an 8.0 of a 1941 Golden Age book and remove that pieces on the corners of the spine. And then also, they had also taken, I can see it now, that black line along the spine that most of these books have for DC specifically, or especially, they had just lightly painted all along that line. And you can tell in the right light because the gloss is off. So again, I decided, do I remove the pieces of paper? Maybe it'd come back as a 7, and then have to remove all of that ink that they painted on the spine. That would cause probably the spine to be completely split. I wasn't going to do it. So I cleaned the book up, was hoping for an 8.5. It definitely looks better than it was when I got it. The back cover wasn't as white as it is right now. And it was also a little bit of a spine roll. The cover was shifted a little bit in one direction. So I was hoping to get an 8.5, but I'm still happy. I will say the restoration here was originally a C1, which means, not a professional, sort of some bleed through. And now restoration is a B1. So at least the restoration quality improved on this. And then I think this is the last, this is the last Christine Farrell book. So, this is the third appearance of Flash. Let me actually go full screen on this one here so we get a little better view. So let me get it to focus. It's looking at me here. Let me try it again. Okay, there we go. There we go. So this is the third Flash, showcase number 13. And it is a CGC 6.5. Now, what they did with this book is somebody had taken, and it's an A1, so it's high quality. They had gotten this paint matched the color of the cover, and they painted like half of the spine. They literally had like a coat of fingernail polish paint down the spine. And so that would peel off. So that all peeled off, but it was also holding the spine together. So once I got it off, there's a split about 1.5 inches on the top corner. So it did come back unrestored, but 4.5. So not bad. I guess it's kind of a wash price wise. But as far as, potential buyers, more people would want the blue label versus the purple label. So I was gonna keep this book if it did come back as a 6 or higher. As you know, I just bought a showcase 4, and I don't have a showcase 13. So if this was a 6, I probably would have kept the book.
Well, the hunt continues.
Yeah. So I got a few more here, about 10 more. You saw this when I was down in Princeton.
Yes.
This is that copy of World's Finest or World's Best Comics #1, restored 5.0. And when I got this, the note said there was some color touch, and it was right here, this white line on Superman. You could probably see down his chest and on his leg, there's a little white line right there. Yeah. So that one, it was very easy to remove the color touch. It was just, pencil marks. But the cover is also glued on, and it's not like a slight amount. It's literally somebody slathered on with a brush some kind of mucilage, and there was so much glue that it oozed out and it got into like the margin. So there's about a 1/2 inch of paper stuck to the spine.
Oh man.
So I decided just to bail on this. Again, how much damage do you want to do to the book? Rather than, to completely remove the cover and potentially, tear up some paper, I removed the color touch. I left the cover glued as it was, and sent it back in. And it's just a little bit lower because now you can see that white line on Superman's leg and up on his chest. But it's a push basically. So, oh, I lied. There's actually one more Christine Farrell book. I believe, well, this is Detective Comics 164.
I mean, not for nothing. Were all her books restored?
No. So this is, don't get me started on this, but I volunteer teach. I actually picked up a few more classes starting next week. I teach STEM lessons, and I talk to the students. I do 4th grade, usually 5th grade. We talk about different kinds of bias. It's very easy in today's society to see something and go, wow, all of her books were restored. Well, I'm exercising selective bias right now. I'm only showing you the restored books. You haven't seen the unrestored ones. So one may think, wow, they're all restored. No, I'm gaming the system, so to speak. But if you think about it, what I do is I usually buy these books that I think that have potential to be unrestored. So that's where the bias comes in. To answer your question, I'd say about maybe 5% of her books were restored.
Oh, not much.
Which is amazing. I mean, I could talk a little bit more about her collection. I got some background information on it, but she bought her books at a time when restoration wasn't popular, in the early mid 70s. So it became really popular when Susan Ciccone and Richard Serrell started pushing it in the early 80s. So if you were a Golden Age collector pre 1970, yeah, you might have gotten a book here or there that somebody, did some work on, pretty obvious, but professional restoration really came into its own in the early 70s and after. But this one, I believe, was the first bat signal on the cover. I guess if you really care, it doesn't say, first time Robin had his bent knee on the front cover. I don't know, just kind of goofy first, but it's a cool black cover. This one had a little bit of tear seal repair work, which, as I said, is always easy to repair or to get rid of. So it was a 5.5. It came back as a 4.5. So the tears are on the right-hand side in the middle part right here. Oh, and I think it might have had, no, this wasn't the one. Yeah, that was just I don't know. I'm surprised they gave it a 4.5 with just that tear. And it's a pretty nice looking book, but it's now unrestored. Hey, we got 6 people. We got people.
Here we go.
Let me see. 6. Who is watching? I'm going to take a look on my phone here and see who we've got. We've got 7 people. Wow. Well, I don't know how to do this on my phone, but I can't see who's watching. But I'm going to guess Alan, Patrick, and possibly Bub's Comics. We'll find out later when I have a chance to look at the comments section. Okay, so this one, and I did find the label. I'm going to go full screen on this one right here. So we talked about this guy.
Oh, yes.
So there we go. Focus it in a little bit. So nothing too, turn this way. Nothing too spectacular. Crime Suspense number 9, or Crime Suspense Stories number 9, 7.5. Bought this book a while ago. I had it for sale, and didn't get any buyers for it. So I had it kicking around. Decided I'm going to get it graded because this is a really nice looking copy. Great eye appeal. Had a couple of minor bends on the back cover near like the upper corner of the spine, and so I think I paid $500 for it when I got it, and 7.5 it went to a 9.4.
Yeah.
So,
someone really missed out on that one.
Yeah, if Patrick was here, we'd call this, one of his red ass specials. But yeah, so basically this one I think I paid $500 for it. This ties with the Gaines file copies. There's a 9.4 and I think a couple of 9.6s, or there's a bunch of 9.6s. There could be a 9.8, but I didn't see any recent sales. So yeah, this is around $3,000 to $4,000 in its current state. So wow. I will probably keep this book. As I said, these books are for sale, but that one I may decide just because that's my best copy of any EC book. This one's a familiar book. You've seen this before.
Oh, yes.
So Tales from the Crypt number 40. I think this is my favorite cover of all of the Tales from the Crypt. It's a close call on a few. I don't know. Do you have a favorite Tales from the Crypt cover?
Yeah. Let me see.
I love 37. That's a very, very close.
I know you like 37, the zombie cover. I remember.
Yeah.
I know you're a big fan of that. I do like the 35, the werewolf cover.
Mhm.
But, I'm really partial to the 23. I really like 23 a lot.
Yeah.
Although I think there are better Tales from the Crypt covers. It's just that one, that issue itself is one of my favorites. I like Reapertate728. That's one of my favorites.
Mhm.
Of course, I think everyone likes the 24. The zombie coming out of the
Yeah.
or the swamp or whatever.
Yeah, those L. Feldstein zombies, those are great.
Well, that's the 22, the 23, and the 24. It's the zombie cover trilogy. It's
Yeah.
the same zombie on a different viewpoint of it, but it's pretty much the same zombie on all the covers. Either one's coming up from the grave, the other one's coming out of the coffin, and lastly, the one's dragging the guy down into the swamp or whatever. But it's the same one.
I think I showed you this. I have the Bobby Blue copy of issue 23, Tales from the Crypt 23. It's an 8.0.
Ooh, yeah.
I
got my 6.0 from you.
Yeah, and that's why I let my 6.0 go, because I upgraded to that one.
Yeah.
And believe me, people were napping on that book. I think I got it for $1,200, I want to say.
That's a steal.
Wow, yeah, that's a steal, especially in the current market. But anyway, this copy I bought a while back, about 2 years ago at the Chicago Fan Expo. A dealer had a lot of Tales from the Crypt there, and I decided to pick this up. Now, he had it graded as an 8.0. I didn't think it was an 8. I thought it was a 7 because there's some
graded
tanning.
As an 8.0?
The back cover, you can see how the spine, let me turn it this way. There's a little bit of tanning along the edges, the top and the bottom. And because of that, structurally, I think it's a high grade copy, but there is also this eraser like smudge right in the middle. Somebody tried to erase a letter, which doesn't look that great. But the tanning, I think CGC really decided that's nothing better than a 5. I was thinking, I could argue a 6, but I've had this book for a while and decided I'm going to get the book graded just to get rid of it.
I got to get mine graded.
Yeah. At the same show, another book. So this wasn't a previous CPR book or anything. I just bought this book up. I bought this book raw. So this is I mean, look at this. So Youthful Magazines, not a very common publisher, one you see or hear of, but Fantastic number 8. It's kind of a bizarre, flying skeleton cover here. I don't know what this bat skeleton thing is, but I bought this in Chicago 2 years ago, and the guy that sold these books, it was a brand new collection he just picked up. The Silver Age books were immaculate. I mean, they were just really, really nice. I bought a couple, and all the keys were there. Batman 227, 155, 171, a lot of X-Men books from number 15 on up, all 9.0, 9.4, probably some 9.6s. But I took a look. He had a couple of pre-code books, and this was one of them. So everyone else was digging around, picking up the DCs and the Marvels, and I snagged the pre-code stuff while they were distracted.
Well, that's usually the story. So many people are distracted by the Silver Age stuff. It's the way it's been for years, and they ignored all the pre-code stuff. And now, as the Silver Age stuff kind of buckles a little bit, you have the pre-codes that seem to have at least some level of resistance.
Yeah. And that's why, since the 80s, I've been buying pre-code books. I mean, just, everyone's looking left, I'm going right.
Yeah.
You have these regrets, if you had a time machine, you'd go back and you'd buy more Hulk 181s for $5 versus, Richie Rich comics. But, back then you just had no idea what direction the market was going to go in. So you're fortunate sometimes to have what you had bought. I was always a big collector of books like this, DC books, especially the 10-cent issues. This is actually my second copy I've ever owned. This is the second appearance of Kid Flash, Flash 111. And I just bought a nice 8.0 for my PC a few months ago, and I had this copy which was kicking around, and this was a previous. You can see it's a 7.5. So I cleaned and pressed it, and now this one is also an 8.0. So I have now two 8.0s. So I'm going to take a look at my copy that I have, my PC copy, and decide if there's any little nuances, as far as centering goes or anything. But I will be selling one of my 8.0 copies of this Flash 111. These early DCs, the 10-cent ones especially, it's just amazing. There are probably fewer copies of this book in 8.0 than any of the Marvel keys, like Amazing Fantasy 15, Hulk #1. I mean, these are probably in high grade. I would guess there's maybe 20 copies or less of this book, whereas there's probably 20 copies of AF15 just in 8.0 alone.
Oh, you could get if you have the money, you could get an AF15 in any grade you want if you have the money.
Yeah.
I mean, naturally, when you get to the higher grades like 9s, and then it's obviously not as available. And it goes without saying how pricey it'll be. But if you wanted a 4.0 Amazing Fantasy 15 or 5.0 Amazing 15, you could get that any day of the week.
Yeah.
Provided that you have the cash. If you have the cash, you got it.
Yeah.
Something like that. It's gonna take you a while to find something like that.
Yeah. So quick side story. I when I first approached Rick Whitelock, who runs New Force Comics, he used to be based out of Florida. He lives in South Carolina now. And I'd see Rick.
Hurricane a few years ago.
Yeah, Hurricane Michael in 2018. Yeah, he was at New York Comic Con when the hurricane hit. So fortunately, some of his inventory was still in transit back home before the hurricane hit. Unfortunately, most of his stuff was in his house, in his store. He lost quite a bit. But one day I walked up to Rick and, introduced myself. I'd seen him around and hadn't really approached him at the shows. And I think it was around 2015 New York Comic Con. And I commented, I said, Rick, where did you get those Hulk #1s? Because on his top shelf, he had a Hulk #1 CGC 0.5. He had a 1.0 copy, a 1.5, a 2.0, a 2.5, a 3, a 3.5, a 4, a 5. I think he had a 6, a 7, 7.5, an 8, and 8.5. And I think 11 copies all total.
Yeah, Marvel's rarest book.
Well, exactly. I go, where did you get all of those copies? He looked at me and he goes, I just find them around. But what he told me was he was trying to get a copy in every possible grade. I think he had a 9.0 also. That was his highest grade copy. But I think he was missing like 3 condition copies, a 5.5 and maybe a 6.5. Somewhere in the middle, there was a gap. But yeah, he was just nonchalant. He goes, yeah, I find them everywhere. So, but yeah, that Flash is a very rare book in high grade. So here's a book maybe might pique your interest a little bit. So this is actually Fight Against Crime #6.
Yeah,
The claim to fame of this one is they got this cop over here who's kind of either been dissolved or just kind of rotted away, and this is some kind of like sewage chemical stuff. The interesting thing is the other, I think it's Fight Against Crime #8, which I have a copy of, has a very similar composition. There's 2 cops in a pit with a woman in a red dress, and then there's this diabolical criminal guy here who's kind of gloating, and they're releasing snakes into the pit.
Oh, I don't think I've seen that one.
So if I had it handy, I'd bring it up, but I think it's Fight Against Crime #8. And the funny thing is these cops down here, I think this cop is here. It is 1 cop instead of 2, but it's 1 cop. So my joke is this is the after image after the snakes came and bit the guy and he died. His corpse is there, so they put a 2nd cop in the pit and they want to dissolve everybody. But this was a copy I bought a while back. It's an old label, 6.0, and it had a strange, the spine was a little bit twisted. It was kind of a transverse spine roll. So the top edge, the right edge here was kind of fanned out a little bit, but it was a 6 before I fixed the spine roll.
Oh, wow.
7.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Tough book to find. It's not a very common book. But yeah, I was impressed. I was happy with that grade. And here's a book that I know you have because you've asked for it before.
Oh yes, yes,
Batman 232.
yes. I have a
Nothing too
nine.
fancy, just an 8.5, and cleaned and pressed it. It's now a 9.0.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I upgraded a lot of books last year that I had purchased in 2014, including the House of Secrets 92. It
Mhm.
seemed like after 10 years, it was time to flush out
Yeah.
some of those 6.5, 7.5, 6.0s and
Mhm.
take them into the higher grades. And I
Yeah,
managed to do that with quite a few.
and my bank account thanks you. That's how I got some of my books, my upgrades, and especially my showcase number 4. So down to the last 4 here. This is a book that I've shown you before recently.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I have a nice 6.0 copy in my collection. This was my previous copy. I had this 5.0, and again, it had kind of like a transverse spine roll where the top edge, the right edge, was kind of fanned out a little bit, stuck out. And let me see if I get this to focus. There we go. But yeah, so I fixed that little bit of a spine roll, and it now is, if I can get this off, it's a
6.
6. So
Nice.
this one is not as I guess terrifying with the skull on it as the other issue with well, I think it's not Beware, but it's Beyond. There's the one, I think Beyond is the one that I sold you. You got that copy with the scuba diver skeleton coming out.
This one.
Yeah, that's it. So I always mix these titles up. So Beyond has that skeleton, and then
Now,
there's
speaking of similar color, speaking of similar covers though from that Fight Against Crime, there's another similar cover where you have the pilot cover, where it's the same kind of blue and the same kind of skull characters, but this time they're in the cockpit of an airplane.
and that was the third one I was going to mention. It's the same. Who's the artist on that, by the way? The cover artist.
Let me double check. The cover artist, it doesn't say. It just it says a bunch of names here, and it just and after all the names, it says art.
Is it?
So
I want to say it's High Fleischman.
no. Nope.
It's not. Okay.
First one on here is Lou Cameron, whom I've never heard of.
Yeah.
And after that, it's Cy Grudko and Jim McLaughlin, Mike Sikowski, Vince Alacia, and Ken Rice. That's it.
I'll have to go back and look. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't really recall who did the cover, but their style was the same. You can tell that one with the skeleton pilots,
Yeah,
and the one that you had right there with the scuba diver. The same artist did both. But I think of this Beware as sort of like the trilogy, because you got the same sort of, this up in the foreground skeleton, piloting something, whether it's a plane or, coming up out of the ocean. And it's not the same artist though, because this skull is designed a little differently than those 2 issues.
I mean, this is a really nice. I mean, just aside from the skeleton, you just look in the background of the water, the blue and the waves and the birds flying in the background. There's a lot more to this than just the obvious, and the obvious is good too, but it has very cool, crisp cover that pops. With all
I got to say, like when I mentioned earlier, discovering the Ernie Gerber photojournals, the Atlas books really pop. When you see a collage of all the pre-code horror books and you're going page after page, those Atlas books stand out. And an occasional non-Atlas title, and I believe there was 73 or 74 horror publishers back in the 50s. So it was quite a few. Most of them were forgettable, but those Beyond and Beware covers also jumped out. I've had those on my want list for decades.
Yeah, I would like to get the pilot one, but I know that's pricey. I think it's pricier than that.
Yeah, it's not too bad. It's just trying to find it.
Well, what is rarer, the scuba one or the pilot one?
They're both equally rare, but I've had 3 copies of the scuba diver. I've only seen 1 or 2 of the pilot, and I've tried to buy them and have just gotten crushed, and I'll bid stupid money on those now, but everyone else, has been beating me out on those. Just 3 more books. Here's one that's just everyone's perennial favorite here, Fantastic Four 48. I just threw this in, CBCS 6.5, and it bumped up to a 7.
Cool.
So I figured it was time to grade. I got 3 or 4 copies of this that are ungraded. Probably time to get a few graded, start moving them, with a movie coming out. So
I remember you pressed my original copy of Fantastic Four 48.
oh yeah, that's
and
right.
and then you were like, "Hey, you got rust on the staples." I'm like, "Really?" I was like, I must have been so long before I opened that damn thing up. But it came back a 5.5 anyway. But then I wound up
Yeah.
upgrading it to a 6.5.
Yeah.
And like I said, maybe one day I'll upgrade it to a 7.5.
Yeah. So 2 more left. This is a book that I've had. I think I've had 3 copies, including this copy. And I'll go full screen on this one so everyone can see this guy. So
Oh wow.
this is Red Seal Comics number 20. And it go back to split screen here. It's restored. It was a 5.5. And the restoration was around the lower staple. There's a little bit of white. You can see it on here. They actually used like a Sharpie marker or something really fat, because you can see where they tried to fill in that little color break. But on the inside of the cover, it just bled right through. So I had to remove a little chunk of paper. That white spot is actually a little piece of. There's 2 of them actually, one there and one right here. The paper is actually missing. But otherwise, the rest of the cover is great. But this is a Harry Chesler cover, very popular artist, and unfortunately, this happens from time to time, about 20% of the time. It came back. It's still a purple here. Let me change so I can focus on my face. There we go.
There we go.
So it came back a higher grade, from a 5.5 to a 6, but it still has some color touch. So I have to figure out where that is. It did go from a amateur to a professional restoration, which tells me it's just very, very subtle. So I'll have to take a close look and figure out where that is and resubmit it. This is a crazy book in a 6.0 condition. If I get this blue label, it's up there. It's a few $1,000s.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, I know people. I've had 2 or 3 copies. People, when they saw the other copies, I've never seen it. And I said, well, these are,
You have.
here you go. And the other 2 copies sold pretty quick. Last book that I've got. So this is actually, I consider it pre-code. Not this copy, but there's a Mystic Comics, which has some horror covers. That's volume 1. This is actually volume 2. So this is actually Mystic. It's not focusing. There we go.
The original Mystics.
So this is Mystic volume 2, issue number 4. It's a Schomburg cover. It's got a bunch of crazy stuff going on the front here. And it had some restoration, 2.5, which was basically some glue on the spine. A bonus, I got a 3.0 on it.
What year is that from, Mike? I can't see the date.
So this is 1945. So this was 2 months. The cover date is 2 months before the end of the war. So it ended like, what was it, May or June of 45, when Japan surrendered, at least. So this was probably printed in December or January of 1944. So 3 months before the cover date.
Is that timely?
What's that?
Is that timely?
Yeah, this is a time. It's got a bunch of crazy stuff. Like it's got
Human
flamethrower here. He's like burning, some of the Japanese soldiers and running them over with the Jeep. Just kind of insanity here. But you look at this. The more you look at it, I see I never saw this before. I never paid attention. He's shooting down some soldiers out of the palm trees. There's never ending insanity going on in the front cover. Yeah. Somebody has a mace. I don't know what this is doing here, but there's like a ball and chain mace right here. Yeah, right there. Somebody's swinging that around. But carnage. But so overall, my success rate is 80-85%. When I submit books that have restoration, there's always something that is iffy, and I'm always amazed at how good CGC, for all their faults and foibles, they're really good at detecting restoration.
Well, good. I mean, that's what you want them to do. I mean, of all
Yeah,
things, you don't want them not to pick up on something, and then someone submits it again, thinking that they're going to get a better grade or whatever, and it comes back
yeah,
restored, and it's caused a little bit of a problem.
yeah. So I'll just end it by saying all those books are for sale. You can go to sellingcomics.com, my website, contact me through there, or comment in this video. Or if you want to go on IG, I'm on Instagram as Selling Comics, DOTCOM. I spell it out because you can't put punctuation in your Instagram name. That's probably the quickest way to reach me. Is I usually go to my Instagram account every day. My website, I haven't maintained that in probably 4 years.
As long as we've done the video together.
Yeah, I like these videos. Back, when the pandemic started, I'll say this. I thought I'm going to have all this free time. I'll be working from home. I bought all this equipment. I got a really nice 4K camera I'm using right now. I have my nice Rode microphone that I use, a studio microphone. I invested all this money into equipment. I got a website set up. I was thinking my process would be live stream unboxings, post the videos or post the books immediately to my website, and then take requests and orders either through the comments or my Instagram page or my website. And I got overwhelmed with how much work it is. It's still maintaining a day job. So I never got far enough where I started, and I've got maybe 15 videos that I have not completed for my channel. And as you can tell, looking at the history and the past videos, probably on this side over here, my last one was posted in 2021. So
yeah, I still have to release a couple more videos. I just don't have the time anymore. I
yeah.
haven't had the time in quite some time.
I would, and this is kind of a invite, I guess, kind of reverse invite. If anybody wants to, host videos, I'm always happy to join. I know my friend Jimmy, Geek Aficionado out of Chicago, he was going pretty strong with his channel, and I was on a couple of his videos, but he's gotten pretty busy with work and life. And I had backlogged a number of topics, and with Patrick too. It's some just crazy stuff that people don't discuss. And in today's market, it's sort of quieted down as far as all of the speculation videos, and everybody's submitting books to get 9/8 and the bread and butter. But some of the topics, like for example, I just finally got this. I have Howard Rogowski's very first catalog.
Oh.
So anybody that had bought books or has looked inside of their bronze, maybe even late silver books at the Marvel ads, Howard was a perennial advertiser for his back issues. I think I saw his Marvel ads like in 67 or 68. And the catalog that I came across, I recently got, was published in 1963. So he was selling back issues, and it's just stupefying looking at the catalog, and it's only like 4 pages. All-Star Comics #1, mint condition, $40. Just you're only,
people are like $40 for a comic book, something that's 10 cents. I don't think so.
And you're only like 20 years out of the golden age, or even less at the end. But 1940 books, 1940s books in 1960 were 20 years old. So it's like buying a book from 2003 today. But yeah, the prices, and I was more impressed with the availability of what some of the books were. Everything was mint. Golden Age books, everything was mint because they were brand new. Yeah. But yeah, that's just one example of one of the topics I wanted to delve deep into, how we survived before the internet, as far as, going to the drugstores, mail ordering comics, bugging, your friends about uncles and aunts or grandparents might have had a comic collection. I used to go on paper drives with friends of mine that were in the Boy Scouts because they used to get comics. And I gave it up because all we got were a bunch of Playboy magazines. And I'm like, this is a waste of my time. Who wants this?
Rogowski how long has he been dead?
So here's the shocker. I missed him at New York Comic Con. He died in April of last year.
Wow, that is a shocker.
Yeah, so I missed him at the 2015 New York Comic Con. He was there on a panel. I didn't know it. I wish I had read the panel, list of topics, and I missed him. I had bought many comics from him back in the 80s when I was in school. So a friend of mine brought his name up recently, and I went, I'm curious. I wonder. So I Googled his name, and a Howard Rogofsky, who lives in the New York City area, passed away, I believe it was last April. And this was like September. I'm looking it up to see, I wonder if he's still alive, and just missed him by, that much. So, yeah.
Wonder how old is he? How old he was?
He was in his teens when he started selling books in the 60s.
Oh, okay.
So he was born in the late 40s, I want to say, mid 40s. So, he was early 82, I believe, when he passed away.
That's funny though. He for such a young age at that time selling books, he really had his finger on it, before other people did.
Yeah.
It wasn't like he was 30 or 40 back then doing that. He's still a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. Someday, I don't know. Like I said, if anybody wants to have me come on, I could tell tons of stories about the history of books. I mean, for example, when I was at Big Apple, I sat for 6, 7, 8 hours. I stood actually next to Gary Dolgoff, and we talked the whole time. I had known of Gary since the 80s, and I was surprised when I asked him, when was your first mail order catalog that he had published, because he advertised in Marvel Comics just like Howard did. And I was surprised. He goes, I think it was 86, 87. And I said, I swear your catalogs go way back to early bronze Marvel. He goes, no. He goes, he bought out, what's his name? Who did the comic bags? I'm drawing a blank right now. Who sold the original comic bags?
That I don't know.
So somebody's screaming right now, you don't know that guy's name. Robert Bell.
Robert Bell, yes.
Robert Bell. So he said he bought Robert Bell's client list out, and he bought whatever inventory he had. He had some comics, but he got his business started, Gary Dolgoff, by buying out Robert Bell's inventory. So it was like passing of the torch. Now there's some history right there. But yeah, that's some of the stuff that, one of these days I may appear on someone's channel or find all this free time and we can talk about some of these stories. So we're coming up on the top of the hour here. So, just a few more minutes, we'll wrap this up. What do you got coming up as far as your want list? You sent me a couple of books you're looking for.
Yes. I'm really hoping to get within the next couple of months a Strange Tales 110. I'm hoping to get it in a 5.0.
Yeah. That's
the spot that I'd like to hit. I'm hoping to get an Amazing Spider-Man 3, 13, 14. The 3, it's a little harder to pay for because it's a little more expensive. I'm hoping a 4, 5, but the others, at least a 6. Like,
okay.
the 13 and the 14, at least a 6. Those are, I get rid of my undercopies because each of those books I have undercopies, and those books are much easier for me to upgrade. They don't take too much resources.
Yeah.
As perhaps, like, let's say the Astonishing, which was a complete resource book, and a few others. But yeah, those are some of the ones that I'm going to be looking to get over the next few months.
Yeah, we should
try to get some Spideys now.
Maybe we could talk at some point. I don't want to overwhelm you with it, but yeah, I've got, except for the number 3, I've got those books, multiple copies in those grades.
You do?
Oh yeah. I probably got about 6 copies of number 14. Number 13, I got about 4 copies. So
we're just gonna have to talk.
Just a disclosure here. So I don't know. I kind of, when I got my showcase number 4, I mean, people maybe have experienced this. It was sort of like a culmination of, decades of searching. Actually, right here, let me pull this down. So when I first started going to shows, I had this little green book right here, little binder. And basically this was, my list of books. I made a checklist. And what I did is I photocopied pages out of Overstreet and I reduced them down. So you can see that.
Yeah.
So this was a price list. And then I kept a hit list, a sheet of my want list right here. So I'd give copies of this to the dealers. And this, I have a date on it, 1996. So, and on the back, and this is proof, 1996, on the back, I have books that I want, like, let's see, Tomb of Terror, number 15.
Is that
Is where
the
anybody
water
else is
cover?
chasing it. Yep, that's the classic Lee Elias cover, the rotting face. I had Detective Comics 35 and 36 with
Oh,
the
wow.
hypodermic needle cover. They were like $1,000 back then. I mean, they weren't bad. They were just really, really hard to find. A lot of Atlas books, Menace 1 through 11. I wanted them all in very fine or better. I have most of those now in very fine or better condition. But
You have 5?
I think so. I don't recall the cover, but I probably have it.
Well, Menace 5 is the zombie.
Yeah, I've got that one. Yeah, yep. And mine's not faded. Doesn't have that red logo that's faded.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this was just a thing I used to carry around, and my list of books that I was looking for. On that list was a showcase number 4. It's been on my want list for about 50 years. Since I first learned you can buy comics at the age of like 5 or 6, my first Comic Con I went to, I was looking for a showcase number 4. I was dismayed nobody had it. I didn't know why, but I was 13. I didn't understand that it wasn't you can print these in like you could other publications.
When I first started going to comic conventions, from what I remember, because it's been a while, maybe my memory's not so good anymore. I don't recall seeing Tales from the Crypt books or pre-code books.
Yeah.
I remember seeing, a lot of the Marvels. I couldn't recall any of the DC books. And that's largely because I wasn't looking for DC. I'm sure they were there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had also in my mind what books I wanted to get. And I've told this story before. I wanted to get Incredible Hulk 181. I wanted to get an Iron Fist 14, an Amazing Spider-Man 129, and an Amazing Spider-Man 14. And I wound up walking out with Amazing Spider-Man 129, a 9.2.
129. Yeah, I've personally held that book. 9.2.
You were the one that pressed it for me.
Right, you got a 9.2, correct?
9.2. But here's the problem with it. Not to carry on. It's a cream to off-white. Now, the reason why it's a cream is because that book was stored in an attic for 20 years.
Ooh, yeah.
Now, I'm surprised it didn't come back, or any of them ever come back any worse. So that's why it's a cream. But most likely, speaking of upgrades, I'm probably going to upgrade that book to a 9.4 one day. And it has to be white pages.
Yeah. Yep.
But it's still a good book. It still looks beautiful. It's, it's a 9.2.
Yeah.
But the only problem with it is cream. Other than that, it's no problems with the staples, no problem with structurally. It's very, very nice. But one day that'll be for sale.
Yeah.
That's one of the first major books I bought, but so what? They paved the way for better stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, let me finish my thought, and then we'll wrap up this live stream portion. I'm sure people right now are screaming like, God, this is so long. So
what books am I buying?
Talking about showcase number 4, I finished my thought from a moment ago. I've had that on my list for decades, and and I finally bought it a few months ago, and it's almost like the end of an era. When I bought it, I'm like, what's next? I mean, that was like my white whale. And I don't have books like Amazing Fantasy 15. I don't have a Captain America 1. I mean, there's some big books that I'd like to have, but I'm like, I just don't have that drive to get those. So I'm looking back at my personal collection now, and I have some, lesser copies I've upgraded over the years. I made a point to this year, I'm going to go through and clean a lot of that stuff out. I'm going to clean it out. I signed up my first ever major convention. I'm going to go to Terrificon as a dealer this year in August. So anybody that wants to, explore the vaults of books that I've had for 40, 50 years, I'm going to bring a choice selection of those, and you probably have first dibs on them, Anthony, before I bring them to the public.
Yes.
But I'm going to go through and kind of weed out some of the, duplicates that I've got that don't fit that core theme, kind of like what ETA Nick had done. Just take them and say, you know what, I like these, but I'm not going to keep these as part of my PC. Yeah. So my
I've done that too recently.
Yeah. So, and I'm probably going to use that money to buy one or two more bigger books. I have a couple of upgrades, but yeah, this is the year of thinning my collection after decades. And of course, I have my own 2-day show coming up in July, the 11th and 12th. I got to get on the ball and announce that. We're going to do, my usual 2-day. It's all comic dealers, 30 some odd comic vendors. And I'll bring, my books to that show first in July. Then, of course, I'll go to the Terrificon show in August. But yeah, so my want list has kind of been very specialized in the last few months now. I'm upgrading a couple of Spider-Man books. Always looking for pre-code horror books that I don't have. And other than that, I've completed my collection. I'm done.
It's a good feeling. It's a good feeling. I mean,
I don't know. It's kind of an emptiness. It's like you finish the marathon. What's next? What's the next goal? I mean, I'll still be collecting, but I'm going to be more selective and, kind of go back and cultivate some of the books that I've got by, either selling them or just keeping one copy versus, 7.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it feels good to get rid of some of things, and being able to bring in something like a nicer Mystic or Astonishing for the first time in my collection. Or like with you a few months ago, I think one of the more recent ones I bought from you was I upgraded the Amazing Spider-Man #9.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That raw copy I had in Princeton.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a good feeling. Oh, wait, I bought recently The House of Mystery. I forget what it was. The zombie coming out of the swamp.
Oh, right. The Bernie Wrightston as oh my gosh, I'm forgetting his handle now. I forget when we talked to Chicago, one of the Instagram YouTuber guys, he called that Swamp Skull. That's the Swamp Skull cover.
Swamp Skull.
Yeah. So I've got another copy of that. It's very, very nice. I have to get it graded. That I'll probably be selling off probably a 9.4, 9.6.
That gets pricey when you get into that grade range. That particular book, I've noticed.
Yeah.
But yeah. But
okay,
you helped me a lot over the last year with old books, with Daredevil #1 and House of Secrets '92, which is still an amazing, great book to have, especially in white pages.
That the market's heating up for a number of books. That's one of them, as I mentioned.
Yeah, I've noticed.
I just saw a cream-colored 7.5 sell for way more than you paid for your copy. I think it sold for $2,100. I think what did I sell you my copy for? $17.50, I think.
I don't remember, but it was
because I priced it at like 2,000 or 21 at the time. So, and that's a white page copy that you have.
It is, yeah.
So
I mean, talk about a nice upgrade.
Yeah. It's a tough that House of Secrets 92. You don't see that often. It's usually the back cover is a little bit discolored, a little bit tanning. I kept that because it was just so nice. I've got 8.5. I got some 8.5 copies in my personal collection, but I decided to, like I said a minute ago, I got to start thinning out my PC. It's time, I think, to revisit some of those books that I've held on to for decades.
Yeah, I've been doing that too. I've gone through some things to get rid of some. I'm like, do I really want a 6.0 Ghost Rider #1 from the 60s? I mean, I could get that book at any time I want, and I don't need to get it at 6.0. I can get it like a 9 if I wanted. Let's see. Maybe I'll get rid of this and put it towards an Astonishing or something.
Yeah.
Something you usually don't see.
It's
just my mindset nowadays.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to end the live stream. If you want to hang out for a minute there, we'll come back after the stream ends. But hopefully we didn't bore everybody too much. And maybe I'll do another one of these again in 3 more years.
Maybe. If you're good, if everyone's good.
Okay. Thanks for
Take care,
joining
everyone.
me. Have a good night.
Thanks for having me, too.
Yep.